Despite Trump waging a whole war in the hope that it distracts enough people from the Epstein story, it's not going away. It's actually getting worse, and I'll tell you why.
Learned today that the Justice Department's internal watchdog, the Inspector General, is launching an investigation into the Justice Department's production of files and documents related to the Epstein case, specifically some of the redaction issues.
I have no doubt that under Pam Bondi's leadership, the former Attorney General, there has been a massive cover-up.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
What started as a controversy surrounding the mishandling of the Epstein files has now escalated into a federal audit, a congressional subpoena fight, and now members of Trump's own party, or at least of old, warning about contempt.
He had his administration, the White House, telling the Speaker and Leader Thune, so Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune, stop this. Do not pass any resolution to release the Epstein files. He told Pam Bondi at the DOJ.
Which we'll get to, right? But first, the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of the Inspector General announced yesterday that it's launching an audit of the Justice Department's compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. In a news release, the Deputy Inspector General said, quote, "The preliminary objective of the internal inquiry is to evaluate the Justice Department's processes for identifying, redacting, and releasing records in its possession as required by the Act."
To a new investigation from the Justice Department's internal watchdog looking into the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files in compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Law, a law compelling the department to release records related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The DOJ has gotten a lot of criticism over its review and release of the files. The watchdog will publish a public report on its findings, although the timeline is unclear. Let's get to Gary Grumbach right now. Now, Gary, talk to me about the kind of accountability that could result from this investigation.
So the Inspector General here is going to look into really everything that happened with the release or lack thereof of the Epstein files. Everything from the focus on the department's identification, collection, and production of these materials, looking into the guidance on what they used to redact the materials, who was redacting, when they decided to redact or not redact materials, and also look into some of the concerns that were raised about the production of these materials and sort of the release of these materials. There was a lot of concerns that were raised, especially by some of the women, some of the victims in this case, that their personal information was out there in these documents and was not redacted. And we're not just talking about names here. We're talking about addresses, cell phone numbers, emails, social security numbers, even in some cases, because there were some bank records involved. So some very personal information ended up on the internet for anyone to see. Of course, the DOJ did promise complete transparency in the Epstein files release, but then in December, they only released a few of them. So there was a real slow trickle of information, and there's still files we haven't yet even seen. Aaron?
The review will look at the Justice Department's identification collection and production of responsive material. Now, where Pam Bondi may want to pay attention is in the latter part of this, where it's stated where they are also looking into the processes for addressing post-release publication concerns. Process meaning completely avoiding any questions and talking about the Dow.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump? All of you. I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. Dow is over 50,000.
Ask them if that's true. Now, would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and estimate and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence? All of them. And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them.
Now, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed by Congress last year and signed into law in November, and it mandates the release of all the Justice Department's files related to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, with exceptions to withhold records that identify victims, include images of child sex abuse, and those that are related to ongoing investigations or are tied to national security. But what prominent Democrats have voiced is that they're not only still far from satisfied with the Republican compliance or lack thereof, they're taking aim at one former Trump appointee, in particular, former Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now, if you recall, Congress subpoenaed former Attorney General Pam Bondi to testify about how the Epstein files were handled, but she just didn't show. And now lawmakers like Robert Garcia are warning that she could be held in contempt of Congress.
We have heard absolutely nothing from her, nothing from any of her legal representatives, nothing from the DOJ. So she has left us no choice. She didn't show up to her scheduled deposition, which we have under law for her to actually come. The Republicans also agreed to that subpoena. They released it with Chairman Comer. And we've heard absolutely nothing from the AG. But what we do know is that half of the files have not been released. Survivors have been, of course, as you know, doxxed and put in danger because their names and information have been put actually in the files that were supposed to be redacted. And so there has been absolutely, in this case, a massive cover-up that's been directed by the AG, and she has not answered a question. So she must come under oath, and stay tuned, because imminently that contempt charge is going to be filed, and we expect that process to go through and for her to show up in front of our committee.
Where there were allegedly over-redactions of men and under-redactions of victims or survivors. How much faith do you have that this Inspector General will be able to bring some accountability here?
I think it's an important step. The role that Inspector Generals play for, in our government is really important. That's why the gutting of some of these Inspector General offices last year by DOJ and the Trump administration were very disturbing. So it's a great first step. I have no doubt that under Pam Bondi's leadership, the former Attorney General, there has been a massive cover-up under this White House at the direction of Donald Trump. That's why, as part of the Oversight Committee, as you know, there was a bipartisan subpoena to have Pam Bondi come forward, and they have displayed just outright defiance of the law and this lawful subpoena. Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche came before us and tried to have this fake hearing with the Oversight Committee, closed doors, no media, no C-SPAN, nothing was transcribed. And when we realized what a sham the whole thing was, and this was their attempt to get out of the, actual hearing and actual deposition, we all walked out. And, our ranking member, Robert Garcia, and all of us as Democrats have said that we will hold Pam Bondi in contempt if she does not come forward. The hearing was supposed to be on the 14th of April, and she is clearly trying to defy the law here.
The chairman of your committee, James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, he says that there's a split in the committee over whether or not Ghislaine Maxwell, the Epstein accomplice who's in prison, should be pardoned by the president in exchange for her testimony. Who on the committee wants her to be pardoned?
I have not heard the specific names, but that is enraging if that is true. I mean, Comer has said that he does not believe that. I know he said that he was misquoted. But I mean, to be honest with you, Jake, there's only a handful of people on that committee who are genuine on the Republican side about getting accountability. It's some of the women that you just showed, who have been consistent in, working with Democrats on subpoenas to have people come forward. The rest of the crew does not care. And in fact, they would love nothing more than for this to go away. That is unbelievable. Let's remind the American public that Ghislaine Maxwell is an absolute monster. I mean, she is just in line with Jeffrey Epstein. She's committed vast crimes and was critical in this child sex trafficking ring. She should not be pardoned at all. She should not be in the cushy prison that she's in. Yeah. And she should be testifying under oath without any sort of incentives provided to her. It's absurd.
And here's the key point here, right? Bondi being fired doesn't protect her from being questioned, despite what Trump likely hoped would happen when he fired her. Lawmakers are making it pretty clear her obligation comes from what she did while she was in office. Doesn't matter whether she still holds the job. So the question now isn't just what's in the files. It's why won't key officials testify about how they were handled in the first place?
Pam Bondi was Attorney General at a time where the Department of Justice failed to comply with the law. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was very clear. They had to release all of the Epstein files with only limited redactions, limited categories of redactions. They, to date, have failed to release all the files and illegally redacted thousands of files. So I want to know who made those decisions. Who made the decision to not release all the files? Who made the decisions to illegally redact a number of the files that seemingly were redacted purely to prevent Donald Trump from being embarrassed.
And while that's all going on, right, Marjorie reformed Greene, one of Trump's most loyal allies once upon a time, before inevitably flaunting her future book. Come on, you know it's happening. It'll be called Deprogrammed or something. Well, she made a scathing statement recently. She said, quote, Donald Trump specifically ordered Pam Bondi not to release the Epstein files.
We started moving into the Epstein files, and everyone remembers that battle. That was the biggest battle on the planet, like the hardest thing to accomplish.
Yeah.
And he had his administration, the White House, telling the Speaker and Leader Thune, so Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune, stop this. Do not pass any resolution to release the Epstein files. He told Pam Bondi at the DOJ, no matter what you think of Pam Bondi, he flat out told her, do not release the Epstein files. He was blocking everybody.
It was all him, because there's a huge narrative out there that it's all Pam Bondi's fault. That
they want to make it Pam Bondi.
Undermining him. You're saying that, to your knowledge, he was driving this bus. Trump drove the bus to suppress the Epstein files, according to what you witnessed.
I know he did. And I don't have any knowledge of him and Pam Bondi's personal conversations, but I know he was telling everyone not to release the files. Mm-hmm. And his reasoning is people are going to get hurt, is what he said. He kept saying that. He was publicly saying it's a Democrat hoax. It's a Democrat hoax, blah, blah. He's saying all this stuff and shaming people. But behind the scenes, he was telling all of us, he was telling Mike Johnson, he's telling everybody, telling Pam Bondi, people are going to get hurt. And who he was talking about, what he told me on the phone, our final conversation, when he had really had it with me, because I wouldn't take my name off the discharge petition.
Good for you.
And I was publicly saying over and over again, release the Epstein files. He told me, he said, my friends will get hurt. So he's talking about his friends. He told me, people Marjorie, people at Mar-a-Lago, they're going to get hurt. And I said, people have already gotten hurt. There's over 1,000 women that have been raped by Jeffrey Epstein and are accusing others. And they've told the FBI, they've told the police, they have been trying for years to get justice for this. Right. I was like, people already have been hurt. And I was trying to tell him, I see, in my mind, I still lived in this world of, well, surely we're going to find out what Bill Clinton did. And Hillary Clinton went to the island too. What did she do? You know, I was in that whole world of, it was only Democrat bad guys that were guilty.
Right.
And even the Epstein victims themselves had said, the ones that I had talked to, others have said differently, but the ones I was talking to said, Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Their attorney told me and said publicly, Donald Trump actually helped convict Jeffrey Epstein. So, and I was telling the president this. I was telling him, the women are supporting you. Some of them even voted for you, Mr. President. Their attorney supports you. I said, please have them in the Oval Office and support them. I said, you have everybody in the Oval Office. Everybody.
Right.
Why can't you have them in? But he flat out refused. And then you saw it. Everybody saw how it unfolded.
Meaning, despite Trump's best efforts, the Epstein files are still very much relevant and in the headlines. And everything around this is moving in the same direction. Calls for more transparency. A DOJ Inspector General audit is underway. Millions of Epstein-related documents remain contested. Lawmakers are demanding more disclosure, and former officials are being compelled to testify. And for Trump, all of this happened under his watch, right? So he can fire his former attorney general all he wants. The American people still deserve to know what her involvement is or was in the mishandling of these documents. Because it's no longer just about Epstein's horrific crimes or the fact that Trump was mentioned more times in the files than Harry Potter was mentioned in Harry Potter. It's about transparency, compliance, and whether officials are actually cooperating with oversight, which they are by law compelled to do. Just for a second, just imagine if roles were reversed here, right? And Biden or Obama were at the helm while all of this was going on. Can you imagine the Fox News coverage just for a second? Because the thing is, every refusal to cooperate creates a new headline and poses more questions. The most important being, if you have nothing to hide, testify.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.